Hello, dear friends. Welcome. It's another edition of the Brattlecast. This is Jordan Rich, along with my dear friend Ken Gloss, the proprietor of the Brattle bookshop in Boston on West Street, a definite must when you come to the city. All kinds of activity over there, and we're going to be talking about some really cool stuff. You know my penchant for old life magazines. You're driving me crazy.
No, it's not just old life magazine. It's anything interesting, Jordan, but older books, magazines.
But for some reason, I'm a life magazine addict. I can't get enough of the old stuff because it's so vivid and so real. We're going to be talking about the differences in how people approach them this time of year.
And who is approaching them. It's very interesting because we've always gotten life magazines. You go into a house, up in the attic are piles of life magazines, more so 30, 40 years ago than now. Mm-hmm. I mean, Life ran from 1936 to 1972, so it stopped publication, and then it went from a weekly to a monthly for a number of years, but the weekly is what everybody remembers.
Right.
And what we used to have at the store, we'd have a wall by a stairway with probably 300 or 400 of what we considered the more interesting, famous Life magazines. And people would stop and stare at that wall. It would bring back all sorts of memories of when they were home. They saw the covers, maybe some movie stars. Lots of them, we had a full set so that if you said, my birthday is June 1950, and we charged generally about $20, and we sold them here and there. And what also would happen is probably most of the sales that we had were very specific issues, Ted Williams, Joe DiMaggio,
right.
movie stars, the Beatles, and the rest would sort of sit there, and then you'd get that occasional birthday or anniversary or whatever. And we always did well, but we'd sell a tiny, tiny percentage, and that's what we'd make our money on. And that started to drop off as Life magazine weren't being asked for as much. And before the pandemic, but about 4 or 5 years ago, we went to an estate, and there was a garage, literally a garage full of books, magazines, all sorts of things. The person's mother had been an antiques dealer and had gone out of business maybe 15 or 20 years before that, but had stored everything away, and they were finally looking to sell the house. They invited us out, and they said, well, look, part of the thing is we want to bid on everything, but you'll take everything. And my manager and I were out there, and we were saying, do we really want these Life magazines? There were just stacks of them. I mean, they're heavy. I assure anybody.
I'm lifting one now from 1945, and this has got some meat to it.
Yeah, but if you're lifting a year of them, which is 50 issues, and you've got 30 or 40 years of that. And we were saying, well, part of the deal is we're going to take them and, we'll do fine with everything else. So what we've done is rather than having a wall of Life magazines, and we ended this a number of years ago, now on that wall we have posters of our rare books so that people know that we have a rare book section on the third floor. It's very colorful. It shows things that you normally wouldn't see. And we have an outside area, and we said, look, maybe these will get worn a little by people having them outside, but why don't we just put them outside, a bunch of them, and just see what happens? And to our surprise, the people who were buying them weren't the customers who remembered Life magazine coming to their house every day, every week. It wasn't the people bringing back their specific memories. That it was all teens, 20, 30-year-olds out there on our and buying 1, 2, 3, maybe from the 40s, maybe from the 50s, 60s. And what we realized is there is a huge movement, not only in books, but in furniture, in decoration, the mid-century modern.
Right.
And what could be more mid-century than Life magazine?
Well, we've seen it in the return of LPs and classic vinyl and things like that. But what I love about these is, I mean, I know history and I lived through some of it, just the tail end of, well, I wasn't around in 45, but it's so historic and so culturally relevant to see the ads and the types of car companies that are out of business now. So kids, though, are drawn, obviously everyone's drawn to the photographs because they're so great.
They're drawn to the photographs. They're drawn just even to the style of how the magazine is made.
Yeah.
They love looking at the advertisements.
Oh, my God. Much fun.
Occasionally it's an event or whatever, but it's more the idea that this is mid-century. And I think a lot of them take them home. They show them to friends. They're a few dollars. Most of them are $5. Some are not. A few get worn out because people are thumbing through them all the time. But what really sort of took us by surprise is that it wasn't sort of the older customer who used to come in and ask for them, but it's the younger customers who are really buying 5, 10, sometimes even 15 at a time. And it was more to decorate and to see what their parents and grandparents in that mid-century and how things were so different, how you pick up a telephone, that's wired to the wall, or the cars from the 50s. And what's happened now, the interesting part about that library that we bought, that we sort of had to take the Life magazines from, we realized we made all our money back just selling the Life magazine. So it turned out to be a much better deal than we thought. Now, it has taken 3 or 4 years. Pandemic slowed it down a little. But now, even more so, if someone were to call me now, we have a whole bunch of Life magazines up in the attic. Usually I would ask, well, has anyone picked through and picked out the famous movie stars? Or has anyone picked out some of the big issues of history, maybe the Churchill covers and that? Now I wouldn't even ask that. I'd just say, are they in good condition? How many do you have? We'll be out. And, of course, I know what's going to happen the next time is that someone's going to call. They'll say, fine. They're going to have a huge Victorian house. It's going to be the middle of the summer, and they're all going to be up in the attic.
Upstairs.
Up in the attic. But, I love going through them. I love certain issues of them, Ted Williams, the Beatles.
Well, I'm holding one right here, which is featuring Joe DiMaggio, full face, and it's 1939, May 1. 10 cents, by the way.
It was 10 cents. Now, admittedly, we are charging maybe $5 now, but
that's a good deal.
Well, it's a good deal, but the reality is that what you would have made if you were working hourly in the 1930s compared to what you'd make now if you were working hourly, it really isn't all that much different. But like I say, in what we realized from these Life magazines is that a lot of the customers are different, that a lot of what they're looking for is different. They're not looking for what their parents were looking for, what their grandparents were looking for. Their idea and concept of history, of decoration, of lifestyle is different. And we who've been doing this a long time just say, yeah, it's different. It's not better. It's not worse. It's different. And if that's how they like it, the only thing we have to make sure to do is adjust to what the customer wants. And quite honestly, we both love them.
Absolutely. There's a movement that's prevalent now. It's always been, and that's retro, the idea of dressing like people dressed in the 20s. That came back. Every era seems to bring them back. But Life magazine, as you and I have pointed out so many times, is that snapshot of time that freezes you. I mean, I'm looking at May 1939, and I'm thinking, you're 4 months away from the start of World War II, right?
Yeah.
And because I'm a history nut, I love this kind of stuff to think about what people were doing and what they were not aware of. But for the younger set, for people who are not as concerned about that, they're looking at what cars look like back then and what fashions look like.
What cars, what fashions, or even looking at an advertisement and what the background looks like.
Yeah.
It looks like. In other words, obviously the advertiser was trying to really push was the product, but what the younger person now, or whoever it is sometimes they'll look right past the product, but look how it's set up, look how it's designed, how they how they visioned it, the colors they used, and that's a lot of the attraction.
You know, it's interesting, too, about the ads back then, even in the 30s, 40s, 50s. So much body copy. In other words, so much text in the ads. These days, everything is picture, dazzling video, move on.
Yeah.
But in those days, if you wanted to read an ad, it would take you a couple of minutes in some cases.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The other thing that makes Life so iconic, its cover was always the same. In other words, the photo on the cover.
But the logo
depiction,
and the placement.
Yeah. You can stand across the room, and even if you can't see well, you'd know that's a Life magazine.
Absolutely.
And I think that also helped promote what people love about it. And it's really, like I say, it took us by surprise initially. A product basically like Life magazine that the sales have been dropping off to the point where we would have made a huge mistake if the person had said, you don't have to take everything. We might have left them behind. Next thing you know, we do a lot of work, and surprisingly, we made a lot of money, and we just wish we'd get another batch. Because quite honestly, if anyone's listening, we're getting low on stock right now. We need more Life magazines.
Well, the one I have here tells you how to get tickets to the New York World's Fair, 1939. It also has a car ad for La Salle. And if you know anything about television in the 70s, that's what Archie and Edith sang. Gee, our old La Salle ran great. And people have no idea what that is. Now you do. Take a look. There it is.
Yeah, and like I say, and even a lot of the people buying it don't care. It's just the look.
Yeah.
It's the design. And if they pick up some of the local history and the times, that's even better.
I love it. You just made my day by bringing these in. I can't stand it. I love it so much. Life magazine, but it's all about where the business is going and where it's taking you.
And in a way, it's joining the generations. What's interesting, you looking at it in one respect, is a totally different way that somebody who's in their 20s looks at it. But for us, it's brought it back, and people are still buying them.
Well, one thing's for sure, women were certainly beautiful back then. They're beautiful now, but man.
Well, of course, it was a different style, a different look. And a lot of times, too, a lot of people are interested in the style and the fashion, and they make periodic comebacks.
Well, I'm looking at hairstyles, for instance, very much in vogue today from back then. Hey, thank you for sharing this, and I'm glad that it worked out.
Well, I'm thrilled that it worked out, but I'm thrilled that it made my people I work with at the store realize we're not necessarily looking at what our age group is, although a lot of my people who work there are younger, and they look at it and say, yeah, we love it because of this, and it makes me say, I've got to think differently, and that's nothing wrong with that.
All I can say is to life, l'chaim. Thank you, Ken. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.